wars, if that's a good enough analogy. And I ended up marrying my childhood sweetheart, who ironically, I brought her and her entire family into the witnesses. And but it kept on feeding on me. It kept on eating at me, and part of that was that I started to drink to hide the memories. I started to have a love affair with the bottle, and that started to affect my life. But during this whole period, I mean, I was working hard at pre-assembly work and assemblies in the sound department. In fact, I had designed and built a video switching system and closed-circuit TV system for the large assemblies. But the molestations, they kept peeping back in my head, and this started to leave problems at home with the bottle and at the hall. And my ex, who is still a very staunch witness, kept running to the elders about everything I said, any kind of attitude that I had, and it created problems. And I started to rebel against the unyielding attitude of the elders. You know, and then when I finally told my story, I said, well, listen, you want to know why I'm drinking and why I'm having problems? I said, this is my story. This is what happened. And they branded me a liar. You know, and then the elders tried to fellowship me on some trumped-up charges. And I turned around and I disassociated myself. I said, no, I'm not going to give you the pleasure of being able to do this to me.
Wow, that's amazing. And your family had spent their whole life serving the Watchtower. You had, in spite of the molestations and the dysfunctional position it put you in, and now what happened to you? I mean, you didn't have anything left, right?
No, I didn't have. Well, basically, I was suffering. I still do from post-traumatic stress disorder. I suffer from horrific nightmares. See, the alcohol stopped that. You know, the alcohol is a depressant,
right?
And it buries that. I mean, I was drinking so heavily that a pint of vodka and a 12-pack of beer was my normal daily consumption.
Wow.
And on the weekends, it was even worse. I could go through a half gallon of vodka. And it hit it. But then when I stopped drinking, everything just sort of like a valve was opened. Any mention of any kind of child sexual abuse would send me off. I get anxiety attacks. I couldn't leave the house. I would be in the house terrified to leave. I couldn't go to work several days. I was unable to leave the house. I was just so terrified. And the horrific nightmares. I'd wake up screaming in the middle of the night, and I knew I needed help. I went to two agencies. One was a substance abuse agency, which worked with me very closely and helped to get me stop drinking. And then I ended up going to see a therapist who I'm still seeing, who worked with me on all the issues. I had to start taking several medications just to bring me to a normal level where I could function and walk in the street and be a somewhat normal human being.
That's incredible. So, is all that behind you, or what's happening with you now?
Well, a lot of that is behind me. I still have issues. I mean, I'm still on some of the medications. I mean, I'm in my 11th year of sobriety.
Still in recovery. We're always in recovery, aren't we?
Yeah, we're all in recovery. And I work at the substance abuse agency that helped me now.
That's great.
I'm on I run an advocacy board for recovering addicts and people with issues of mental health, and I've been recently appointed to their board of directors. And I also belong on the Massachusetts statewide Bureau of Substance Abuse Services Consumer Board. And I'm in college, majoring in psychosociology, and I just recently made Phi Theta Kappa. That puts me like one top 10% of the college, and there's 20,000 people that go to that college, so I'm in the top 1%.
Fantastic.
And as far as the mental health issues, I still see my therapist because I still do have the horrific nightmares at times.
Sure.
I've sort of become hardened, and I don't mean it to sound that way, but I can handle now talking about child abuse. If I see it on TV, it doesn't send me off into a anxiety or panic attack. I talk a lot with Bill Bowen, from Silent Lambs.
Right. And
I do get stories sent to me, and some of them are heart-wrenching. I end up in tears reading some of the stories. And it's this anger that I get that, how can this organization that presents all this love and loving kindness and concern allow these things to happen to innocent children and innocent, even with the spousal abuse, how they can allow that to happen to women.
Right. So Do you think, there's a lot of this abuse issues involved with Jehovah's Witnesses in the news media lately, the molestation and all that. So you see that as a pretty big problem in the witnesses from your background, not just with you, but...
Oh, yeah.
You talk with people who've been through similar things. Obviously, you talk with Silent Lambs, Bill Bowen.
Yeah, and not only that, I've talked, there's a group here in the town I live in Lowell, Massachusetts, of the Catholic victims. Mm-hmm. And I went down to one of their meetings, because they had an open meeting. And I was sitting there, and it was like I was with a bunch of Jehovah's Witnesses listening to these Catholic victims of priest pedophiles.
Incredible.
It was like, just change the name from Catholic to Witness, or vice versa. And I was in tears. I walked out of there. I was totally shaken. These people experienced the same thing that I did. They were terrified into silence. They thought that the priest was, way above them, that he could do no wrong. And just take that and change it to what the elders are like. They're supposed to be princes among men. They're supposed to be the heads of the congregation. You're supposed to respect them, obey them. What's the difference, I said.
Right. Where would you put the blame within the Jehovah's Witness system for this thing that's happening, this madness, or has been happening for decades?
That there's a lot of good people in the witnesses. I have several friends that are still they're good people. They're good-hearted, they mean well, but they're being misled. Mm-hmm. And I would say it bases right squarely at 125 Columbia Heights,
right.
The world headquarters. It's the governing body and the organization that runs this religion.